gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend. Here's something the legacy media does not want you to know. While Democrats are already panicking about the 2026 midterms, Republicans are playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And the data shows it's already working. Bottom line, what's happening right now isn't just amazing strategy on the part of Republicans. It's a complete political realignment that could lock in conservative power for at least the next decade. And most people have no idea it's even happening. I'm going to show you 3 strategic moves Republicans are making right now that could flip the entire political landscape, backed by hard data that even Democrat strategists are quietly freaking out about. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the 2026 midterms may be one of the most extraordinary midterms we've seen in decades. So let's start with the most obvious move, and that's the GOP's extraordinary redistricting. Texas is about to redraw congressional maps to gain 5 new solid Republican seats. Now, of course, Democrats are screaming and threatening that they're going to do the same thing in their blue states. I'm going to show you how that's all bark and no bite. The Cook Political Report estimates that Republicans could comfortably flip at least 3 Democrat seats in Texas to permanent Republican. That's not just +3 for the GOP, that's -3 for Democrats. That is a net swing of 6 seats. But what's so cool here is that Florida already beat them to the punch. The Florida Supreme Court just held DeSantis' congressional map from 2022, giving Republicans a 20-8 seat advantage. So Democrats challenged it for the last 3 years, but they just lost in the state Supreme Court. So Democrat representatives have basically been permanently consigned to just single digits in both the second and third largest states in the nation. Now, here's where it gets interesting. California's Gavin Newsom is threatening to fight this back. He's threatening to gerrymander California to offset Texas's 5 new GOP seats with 5 new Democrat seats. And he's not alone. Beto O'Rourke, the repeatedly failed political wannabe, was on CNN this morning warning the same thing. He's like, if Texas go ahead with this redistricting, with this gerrymandering, then California will be joined by Illinois and New York to counter all of Texas's redistricting, as well as Ohio's and North Carolina's. Could give us upwards of like 16 new seats. Unfortunately for a political illiterate like O'Rourke, as well as the perpetual embarrassment of Newsom, the inconvenient truth here is they can't. All these threats are all bark, no bite. California, Illinois, New York, all these states use an independent redistricting commission. And changing that would require a constitutional amendment approved by voters. In California, voters approved that commission by 61% back in 2010. These are the very definition of empty threats. They can't do anything about this. That's the brilliance of what the Republicans are doing in Texas, as well as in Ohio and North Carolina. They are exploiting the fact that these 3 major Democrat states are all hamstrung by independent redistricting commissions, while red states are not. So let the mass redrawing begin. And to make it even more glorious, while Republicans are redrawing maps, something even bigger is happening. Secondly, Americans are voting with their feet. The data is absolutely devastating for the Democrats. According to the American Redistricting Project, 15 congressional seats will change states by 2030. And nearly all the winners are red states. All the losers are blue states. California is projected to lose at least 5 seats. New York loses 3. Illinois loses 2. Meanwhile, Texas and Florida each gain 4 seats. North Carolina is projected to gain 1 seat, as well as Georgia, Arizona, Idaho, and Utah. They're all picking up 1 seat each. It's a massive political power transfer. That all represents more or less a 20-point electoral vote swing in favor of Republican states. And what that means is frankly electorally astonishing. In 2024, Trump won 312 electoral votes. Under the projected 2030 map, that exact same state breakdown would give him 332 electoral votes. To make it even worse, the Democratic path to 270 just became nearly impossible because it works the opposite way. Biden's 306 vote victory in 2020 would shrink to just 286 under the new map. So now you can see why this isn't just about the 2030 census anymore. This represents a fundamental shift in American political geography. But here's the professor in me speaking. I am, after all, your patriot professor, your back porch professor. Migration patterns tell us something deeper about policy preferences. When people consistently leave high tax, high regulation states for low tax, business friendly states, that's not random. That's market feedback. And it's a feedback that's creating what appears to be an inescapable electoral doom loop that Democrat states are trapped in. Their policies have made their states completely unaffordable. 8 of the 10 states with the highest housing costs are solid blue states. Their high taxes, their income tax, their property taxes, their imploding cities all contribute to a mass exodus of leftugees, as we call them. So their policies create miserable conditions. Those miserable conditions drive out families, which then in turn costs these blue states electoral votes, which makes it harder for them to win elections, which then causes them to default to their more radical left wing, which impose even more radical policies, which makes the states even more miserable, which causes more and more residents to leave, which costs them more electoral votes, which makes it harder for them to win elections, which causes them to default back to their more radical wing, who impose even more radical policies, and around and around and around we go. That's the doom loop they're all caught up in. So here's an interesting stat. By 2030, the South will have 164 House seats, which is the most congressional seats they've ever had in our nation's history. The Democratic strategy of winning the blue wall states will no longer be enough to reach 270 electoral votes. Even if Democrats were to sweep Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they still fall short of 270. The Republican lock in the Electoral College will be nearly unbreakable. So what does all this mean for the midterms? Well, if you're regular to this channel, and if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We'd love to have you as a regular part of our online community here. But if you're a regular, then you know that traditional midterm patterns predict that the president's party loses on average 37 seats in a midterm. But here's the key. That traditional pattern assumes both parties were playing by the same rules, that there's a relative representational parity between the two parties. That's not the case anymore. Our good friend Seth Keshel, the election analyst who had a near 100% prediction record for 2024, he argues that about 85% of House seats are safe. Okay, that amounts to 366 seats. They're very unlikely to flip one way or the other. So midterm election comes down to 15% of the seats in the House, or 70 seats. Right now, as we speak, the Democrats currently hold about 70% of those 70 seats. Democrats hold 46 of the 69 flippable seats, meaning they're the ones who are on the defense. They're the ones who have to win the vast majority, 70% of competitive seats, just to stay even. So that's the massive disadvantage that the Democrats are in right now. And then you have Republicans now crushing it with the redistricting plans in Texas, Ohio, North Carolina, netting them at least 7 new solid Republican seats. Then you have the migration patterns netting them more and more electoral votes and more congressional seats. And then that spells disaster for both 2026 and beyond. The institutional changes Republicans are implementing, from redistricting to leveraging demographic shifts, just creates an inordinate advantage that will persist beyond individual election cycles. So here's what the data bottom line tells us. Republicans aren't just preparing for 2026, they're positioning for 2030 and beyond. While Democrats are flailing and chasing their own tails, Republicans are reshaping the entire electoral landscape. It's amazing stuff. So what do you think? You think the Republicans are playing the game better than the Democrats, or will traditional midterm patterns still hold? Let us know in the comments section below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless.